Better than the Curry Warriors, the SGA Thunder, and the Showtime Lakers. No team in history scored the way they did. They had one record-breaking season after another. In the 1980s, the Denver Nuggets cracked the code on how to run a supremely dominant offense. They were led by Hall of Famer Alex English. He remains as one of the greatest scorers ever. But it wasn't just him. They had so many iconic and underrated players that contributed to this entertaining and historic offensive team. I'm also collaborating with CLNS NBA History and Storytellers. We'll have former players and legendary sports journalists give us their unique insight on this era of the Denver Nuggets. Here's the ultimate stat that proves that this was indeed a record-breaking offense. In the 1981-82 season, they averaged a mind-blowing 126.5 points per game. That is an all-time record for the highest points per game average. On top of that, they shot 52% from the field. That's the 7th most efficient season ever. Nearly 45 years later, and there is no team that could top what they accomplished. Here's the crazy part. They only made 43 pointers for the entire year. They didn't need analytics. They ran their West Coast offense to perfection. But I can assure you, this wasn't a fluke. They were also able to record the 5th highest and 7th highest points per game average for a single season. Did you know that there have been 33 times that a team has averaged over 120 points? The 80s Nuggets did it 5 times. Just for context, the Showtime Lakers never averaged over 120 points per game. But that's not all. During the 80s, they led the league in scoring 6 times, which is the most out of any team during that decade. That includes being the league leaders in 5 straight years. They also led the league in offensive rating twice. This era of the Nuggets is easily the most explosive scoring offense ever. This allowed them to achieve 250-win seasons, and they reached the conference finals in 1985. For a good portion of the decade, they were among the top contenders in the West. What was the secret behind their success? It all starts with the brilliant offensive mind of their head coach, Doug Moe. This was the same guy that coached another legendary scorer, George Gervin, in the San Antonio Spurs in the late 70s. They were also consistently among the top scoring teams of their time. Alex English explained his philosophy perfectly according to Mile High Sports in 2017. He said this: "We were all about movement and it was all organized. It was not just pick and roll stuff. It was basketball at its purest form. It was pushing the ball up, cutting to the basket, passing if it was open, and continuous movement." I think a lot of coaches feel like they have to look like coaches and design plays. Doug didn't design any plays. It was very simple. Our offense was pass, cut, set good screens, and if you have a good shot, you take it. End of quote. But that's not all.
I have some quotes from Doug. Are you ready?
I am.
Question, Doug. What is your philosophy of offense? Answer: I don't have a philosophy. If I've got a player that's shooting well, I'm sure not going to take him out. And then they said, "So what about your offense?" He said, "If anybody ought to know what we're running, tell them it's me. And I tell you, we ain't running anything. It's freelance." That was Doug. The answer was, there was no answer there, but there was an answer there, if you know what I mean. In other words,
Yeah, let him go.
let him go.
A great coach and system is only the start. You also need great players, and the Nuggets had a surplus of talent. I'm sure I can speak for all Nuggets fans when I say that it was extremely unfortunate that David Thompson wasn't truly a part of this. For years, he was a franchise player. He was a generational talent and was among the top players in the league. But in the 1982 offseason, the Nuggets decided to part ways with him. Carl Shear, the president and general manager of the Nuggets, said this after making the move: "We are building a team that just isn't suited for David." End of quote. It's true that his numbers declined significantly and injuries played a part in that, but the biggest concern was his battle with drugs. It was reported prior to the trade that he was being investigated for cocaine use with the Denver police. I believe it's no accident that they made this move shortly after this went public. One can only imagine what the Nuggets could have accomplished if they had a prime David Thompson with this core, but they had other players who were ready to step up. It all started with their star player, Alex English. He was a perfect player to execute the system. This was not someone that was looking to put the ball on the floor. He would dribble 1 or 2 times before taking his shot. What he lacked in ball handling, he made up with his remarkable shooting efficiency and his willingness to be in constant motion. His main offensive weapon was his smooth jumper. He could score in heavy traffic because he shoots it with maximum arm extension. This allowed him to score at a very high rate. For example, in 1982, he averaged 25.4 points per game on 55% shooting. If we eliminate the centers and power forwards, he's among 5 players to average over 25 points while shooting at least 55% from the field. In the following season, he was a scoring champion. During the golden era of basketball, he had the reputation of being one of the best scorers. But don't just take it from me.
Alex English played in Denver, and that was an ideal place for him because the guy never got tired. When they got up and down the floor, Alex was running the floor, and you had to have people to run with him. So Alex English had that weird high shot that way over his head. Wasn't very physical, but could score at any angle on the court. He reminded me a little bit about George Gervin, but a little bit more physical. I mean, and I said when Alex was physical, he'd bang on you. You didn't feel it, but he was banging on you. But all he wanted to do was create distance from you. But Alex English has scored with the best of them, man. And again, he's another player that don't get enough recognition.
Did you know that in all 23 of his career 40-point games, he shot over 50%? His career high came against Hakeem Olajuwon, Ralph Sampson, and the Houston Rockets. He scored 54 points on 70% shooting. This was against a dominant front line in a top 4 defensive team, but they had no answers for him. What he was also known for was his consistency and durability. For 10 straight years, he played at least 80 games. For 6 seasons in a row, he averaged over 25 points per game while shooting over 50%. He is only one of 10 players in history to do it at least 6 times. Did you know that he scored the most points during the 80s? He was also the first player to score over 2,000 points in 8 straight seasons. Everyone knows him for being a great scorer, but he was much more than that. Let's use his 1982 season again as an example. On top of averaging 25 points, he had 6.8 rebounds and 5.3 assists per game. Let's put those numbers side by side with a player that is known for their all-around excellence, Grant Hill. In his 1999-2000 season, look at how identical their numbers were. He never gets credit for this, but Alex English was a very underrated all-around forward.
He was DeMar DeRozan before DeMar DeRozan. He was Mr. Midrange.
Yeah.
Mid-range. I would like to look. I don't think he featured many threes, but he had great up fakes. He had great movement. There's a little bit of Chet Walker in him. There was a little, which is the greatest up fake guy ever. There was a little Iceman in him. There's a little, he had a consummate mid-range repertoire. That's it. Simple as that.
As great as he was, he played with some talented players. That includes the Hall of Fame center, Dan Issel. He should be considered the godfather of the stretch big. He was quite honestly one of the best shooters of his time. He gave all the great centers problems because of his ability to stretch and run the floor. He was extremely active. He had a great basketball mind. He also has a great statistical case. If we count his ABA career, he would be 14th all-time in scoring. He would be in the exclusive club of big men that posted over 25,000 points and 10,000 rebounds for their career. Keep in mind that he was 31 years old by the time we entered the 80s. Centers usually don't age gracefully, but he added 4 more seasons of averaging over 20 points per game while being very efficient. This was someone that was definitely ahead of his time. Then in the 1980 offseason, they drafted the forward out of UCLA that would quickly become one of the league's top scoring threats. Kiki Vandeweghe was great at one thing and one thing only, that was scoring the ball. By his second season, he was averaging over 20 points per game. For the next 2 years, he kept improving and improving. By his 4th season, he averaged 29.4 points on 56% shooting. He finished 2nd in the league in scoring in 1983 and 3rd in 1984. During that year, he didn't have 1, but 2 games where he scored over 50 points while shooting over 70%. The numbers say that he was an automatic bucket. With these 3 players, it's easy to see why the Nuggets were so explosive. It almost makes you wonder, well, was there anyone that was going to focus on defense? That's where T.R. Dunn came to play. He was their defensive stopper. In fact, he was selected to the All-NBA defensive team 3 times. The Nuggets had so many great scorers, they needed someone that was solely focused on defense and doing the little things. they benefited greatly from having one of the best defensive specialists from the guard position. We also want to shout out some of their most important role players. That includes Danny Shays, Mike Evans, and Bill Hanslick. With this core, they were able to make history. In 1983, they played against the Detroit Pistons. In a triple overtime thriller, the final score was 186 to 184. If you look at the Nuggets box score, you notice just how dangerous their big three was. Kiki Vandeweghe and Alex English were extremely dominant. They nearly became the only pair of teammates to score over 50 points in a game. What this core was able to accomplish in the regular season was nothing short of historic, but did it translate to playoff success? The farthest that they went was the semifinals, which occurred in 1983. Against Doug Moe's old team, they got dismantled by the Spurs. A change was needed in order to get to the next level. In the 1984 offseason, they made a big trade. They traded Kiki Vandeweghe for Calvin Natt, Fat Lever, Wayne Cooper, and 2 draft picks. With this one move, they added depth and versatility. Calvin was a big and physical forward who also had some finesse. He was an undersized power forward, listing at 6'6", but he made up for it with his strength, aggressiveness, and hard work. He was nicknamed Pitbull for a reason. They were missing a player with that mentality and play style, but he was also someone that could provide plenty of scoring. He had a nice outside touch and athleticism to finish strong at the rim. Then we have one of the greatest all-around point guards of all time, Fat Lever. From 1985 to 1989, he produced a total of 38 triple-doubles. That alone puts him in the top 13 for the most career triple-doubles. On top of that, he was selected to the All-NBA defensive team in 1988. This was a world-class athlete. It was impressive to see him flying down the court, pushing the pace, creating shots for his team, scoring, and forcing turnovers, all without breaking a sweat. This was now a more complete roster. They were now equipped for a deep playoff run. They won 52 games and had the second best record in the West. In the playoffs, Alex English was elevating his game to a very high level. For this postseason, he averaged 30.2 points on 54% shooting, 6.6 rebounds, and 4.5 assists per game. In the semifinals against the Utah Jazz, he had a dominant performance in Game 4 that gave his team a 3-1 series lead. He had 40 points on 74% shooting, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. But during this time, the only way you could measure yourself in that conference was when you played against the Los Angeles Lakers. This was their first time playing against them in the playoffs. They knew they would have to go through them to reach the finals. They showed no fear. In Game 2, they went to the Forum and destroyed them. This should be considered the greatest moment of Alex's career. He had 40 points on 55% shooting, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists. They beat them by 22 points. This was their moment, and it seemed like they were going to make this a competitive series. But everything changed in Game 4. With about 5 minutes left in the third quarter, he was battling for a rebound with Kareem. That's when he swung an elbow at him. He suffered multiple fractures in his right thumb and was sidelined for the rest of the series. But this wasn't the only injury that this team had. Calvin Natt injured his knee in the middle of the season. Surgery was required, but he postponed it until after the playoffs. He toughed it out and continued playing. You can't help but admire his toughness. However, his effectiveness was hampered as the series progressed. Then there was Fat Lever, who missed 2 games that series due to a knee injury he suffered in the previous round. It just wasn't right. The one time they went this far in the postseason and they were nowhere near 100%. Many Nuggets fans felt robbed of an opportunity of giving the Lakers a true fight. Their next best chance of making some noise in the playoffs came in the 1987-88 season. That's when they added some key pieces that pushed them to another level. They were able to receive Jay Vincent and the dynamic Michael Adams through a trade. This was a 5'10" point guard who might have been the first volume 3-point shooter. He led the league in 3-point attempts for 4 straight years. But that wasn't the only part of his game. He was ultra quick, and he used that to his advantage to slice through the defense. And he was a proficient distributor of the ball. His assist-to-turnover ratio was superb. Their backcourt consisted of 2 point guards, Fat Lever and Michael Adams, but they were able to make it work. In fact, they won the most games during the Alex English era. They had 54 wins, and they had the second best record in the West. This was their moment to get back to the Western Conference Finals and exact revenge on the Lakers. They surely felt confident of their odds of beating them. In fact, they won their regular season matchup, beating them 3 out of the 5 games. But once again, they couldn't stay healthy. Calvin Natt injured his knee again and only played 27 games that year. Then Fat Lever injured his knee in Game 3 of the semifinals against the Mavericks. He later needed surgery. In that same game, Jay Vincent got injured and was sidelined for the rest of the series. This was another important piece that contributed to their turnaround. He was considered one of the best 6-men in the game. Keep in mind that when these injuries occurred, they had a 2-1 series lead, but without them, there was no way that they could hold on. They eventually lost the series in 6 games. After seeing Dallas play the Lakers so tough in the conference finals and take them all the way to 7 games, they must have wondered, could that have been us? Could we have gotten the job done? It's truly unfortunate that injuries ruined their 2 best seasons. That surely played a factor in their inability to perform in the playoffs. But that's not the only thing that we can say about the Denver Nuggets, and it's time to have an honest conversation about what they were truly missing.
But you have played teams like Denver, who said, go ahead, if you score 170, come on, man.
Well, but
You didn't play nobody.
Brad, Dan Issel and English, both of them were averaging 25 a game.
Yeah, but they give up 30 a game.
The thing he did resent, though, was the idea that they don't play defense. They caused a lot of turnovers that led to their offense. They never had that and at a time when 5-man mattered, when centers mattered. Remember,
they never had a big guy.
There was a period of time in the NBA for a 20-year period, literally, in which only one non-center won an MVP.
Did they have Issel at one point?
Well, Issel, oh yeah, they hit him a lot, but he wasn't a center. I mean, he wasn't a pure 5. He was
okay.
The scoring machine, and he wasn't a factor at the other end. Danny Chase was their center for a long time.
Yeah, and he was just a bruiser.
Much longer than people realize. He had like a 14-year career. But Danny Chase was, he wasn't a factor at the other end. And he wasn't that great a factor. He belonged in the league. He probably should have been a career backup, frankly. But he was their guy for a long time. If that's the best you can do, you're not winning the whole thing.
The numbers speak for themselves. There were 5 times where they were dead last in opponents' points per game, and there were 3 times where they were in the bottom 3 in defensive rating. There were times where they attempted to address the issue, but it was never fully resolved. With that being said, this doesn't mean that we should dismiss what they accomplished. They were major players in the golden era of the NBA, and you can even make the case that they had a large influence in the way the NBA is being played today. But what about you all? What was your favorite memory of this team? What was the one thing they were missing that could have made them champions? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.